What's up, photo friends? Phil and Will here, answering your photo questions. This comes from our community on Facebook, from our friend Chris. Thank you for this question. He says, I'm not quite a beginner, but still feel like one. He shot a wedding last weekend. He was the second shooter and felt lost. How do you set up for fast movement and then slow movement, switching between those two scenarios to get the shots? I think on one hand, Chris, I think we've all been there. We've all felt lost. We've all felt like we were trying to literally catch up with our camera to whatever action is in front of us that we're trying to catch. So know that we've all been there. And also know that even though you feel lost, you're still probably 99% better than anyone else there.
Totally.
And so I hope you have confidence in yourself, because all the other guests at the wedding, they don't care what you were feeling or acting like, because you're probably a lot better than them at it.
And you've probably still got some great images, I'm sure.
So in terms of, I think we're kind of trying to understand exactly what this situation would be, but what I'm understanding is maybe you're going from the bride walking down the aisle to them stationary up at the front of the ceremony, or maybe dancing, then I don't know, going straight to like a shot of the bride's mom sitting there or something. How do you switch? I mean, I think the main thing is understanding what shutter speeds you should have to capture different types of motion. And so if you know that you have to be at 1/25th of a second to capture motion still, that kind of motion, then over time you'll just know that. And so you'll be able to automatically say your camera is at 1/60th of a second, but then they're going to start walking down the aisle. Crank that up to 1/25th or 1/250th of a second, because that's what you need. And then if you're on a mode like aperture priority, your camera is automatically going to adjust. Actually, you would be on shutter priority.
You'd be on shutter priority.
Yeah, so you would be on shutter priority. You could do that, and then your camera would automatically adjust the exposure with the aperture or the ISO to expose properly. Or I guess, like, depending on the camera, you could lock down. You could do a manual mode and have your ISO on auto. So you could have your aperture locked, you could use your shutter speed and lock it down, and then your ISO would just be bouncing up and down. And
totally,
you could limit that to something you feel safe doing. But I think for me, that would be my main suggestion, is practicing and really understanding if people are moving, I need the shutter speed at X. If they're sitting still, I need it at X. And at the end of the day, if your shutter speed is set to someone moving, you're still gonna be able to shoot someone who's still at that shutter speed.
Yeah.
Vice versa, it might not work out, because if you're at a 1/60th for
it won't work
a
for
portrait,
dancing or something. Yeah.
Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that.
But you have another kind of way that you shoot weddings.
So when I shoot weddings, I tend to. First of all, you have to know your camera really well. So I know a certain ISO at which camera I'm using, and I will lock it at the highest ISO I feel comfortable with. Whether that be 800, 1200, 1500, 2000, whatever camera I'm using, I figure that out, and I know that. I lock it there. And then I shoot aperture priority, because normally I'd shoot manual when I'm like walking around and stuff, but during a wedding, when you don't have time, you shoot aperture priority, you pick your aperture that you want, which is usually a 2.8. Unless I have a faster lens, I'll go to a 1.2 if it's nighttime or whatever. And I let the shutter do its thing. So typically, because I'm at a higher ISO that I feel comfortable with, I picked a 2.8, I'm wide open. The shutter value will pick itself because I'm in aperture priority. That being said, when I feel like maybe I do want a faster shutter or I do want a slower shutter for motion, I use exposure compensation dial, which I know this is a little bit more advanced. A lot of people haven't really gotten used to using that, where I will tell the camera that I want it to be overexposed a little bit, in which case, because I'm in aperture priority, because I've locked my ISO, and I want it to be overexposed more, the shutter will now drop significantly to allow more light in, and let you create a little bit more motion maybe in what you're thinking of. And this is what I think you're asking. I'm not totally sure.
Yeah, I think so.
Vice versa, in the other direction, if I want to freeze the action more, if I'm not getting enough frozen action, that means I need to lock that light down more, right? It needs to be less light coming in. So I'm going to change my exposure compensation because I need
a
to freeze
faster shutter speed.
Right, I need to freeze it. So I want a faster shutter. I know that if I stop down through exposure compensation, I tell the camera I want it a stop darker. I want it a little darker. It will adjust the shutter before anything else. And for me, that's just the way I work. And it's a quick. You can also just do that in manual too.
Yeah.
You can always be at 2.8, always be at 2000 ISO, and just move your shutter up and down based on how you want to do it. And just know what you're gonna have to do in post.
Yeah.
Because I know if I'm underexposed, I'm gonna have to fix it later. If I'm overexposed, I'm gonna fix it a little later. So as long as you're within the range and you learn your camera.
I think maybe what would be helpful is understanding what really the issue was for Chris. Were his photos ending up too blurry, or what the issue? I'm assuming that's what the issue is.
I think practicing those things,
Yeah.
but again, I think it said someone in the comments, practicing is good.
Yeah.
Just keep getting in those situations, and you'll learn what works best for you. And every situation is different. Sometimes there's lights at weddings. Sometimes it's dark.
Yeah.
So
Cool. Chris, thanks for the question, and I hope this helped you out.
you too.
I hope that this video helped you out, whether you were the one asking this question or if you found this video and it was something that you were interested in. These are the kinds of questions and photography basics that we cover in our photography courses and in our community, Photography and Friends, which you have access to whenever you enroll in one of our courses. We also have a free resource that's available for all beginner photographers over at photographyandfriends.com, where you can learn all the basic skills and even advanced tips and tricks to help you become a better photographer. Thanks so much for watching and have a beautiful day.